Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center. As you can see by the title and by the thumbnail, today we're going to be breaking down some film on Tee Higgins. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. So the very first play, we start off with one of my favorite scenarios. And that's a gotta have it situation, which is a 3rd and 4. So obviously, I call it gotta have it because if you don't get this first down conversion, either you're gonna go for it on 4th down or either you're gonna punt the ball. So that's why we call it gotta have it situation. So you got Tee Higgins matched up on the outside, 1-on-1. He's on the boundary side, meaning he's the short side of the field. And that's always a indication of it's how dominant of a receiver is he? You know what I mean? Because if you get those matchups 1-on-1 on the boundary side, short side of the field, are you coming up with those wins more times than not? So that's normally a factor we look at whenever we kind of trying to decide how dominant a receiver is, as well as his clutchness. Those gotta have a situation. So right here, man, they pretty much just run a pitch and catch it, like they ran just an in route, like he might have ran like a little 10-step in. Obviously, they had to get to the sticks to get the first down. So he does that, and obviously, one of the things we talk about too is what can you do on your own, and what can you do on your own means the yards after the catch. What can you do once the ball is in your hand? So he does a good job at showcasing his physicality, his balance, and his toughness, knowing that you're gonna come across the middle and get hit. And not only does he get hit, he bounces off the hit for another 3 to 4 to 5, 6, 7 some yards. So that's one of the things. That's what I mean when I say what can you do on your own. And receivers like Tee Higgins and Jamar Chase obviously too, but receivers like those are the ones that can make plays not only when things are going the way that they're supposed to, but when things kind of break down and collapse, they're able to play off script and make something happen out of nothing. So right here, you see Tee Higgins lined up in the slot. So obviously, once again, we do see that he's one of those guys that can maneuver and be utilized and play different positions within the formation. So we seen the first one, he was lined up on the boundary side, 1-on-1 matched up. Now, this time we see him, he's lined up on the field side, but he's lined up in the slot. And one of the things we always talk about when I talk about the red area is being able to maneuver in those tight spaces. So being able to run routes and being able to, be able to make those tight catches in those very tight windows in the red area, because it's not that much room to work with. I always talk about that's a factor that a receiver needs to have, but then also too, a receiver as well as a running back, anybody who's going to be carrying the ball for the most part, you have to have that sense of grit and toughness as well, because you got to understand that when you're in the red area, right, be simply tucking the football, making sure that it's high and tight, protecting the football, and putting your shoulder pad down can lead to maybe 5 yards, but those 5 yards can be a touchdown just because of how short the field is now, because we're not working from the 20-yard line or anything from that way back up towards the red zone, the red area. When you're in the red area, just one simple 5-yard run or one simple 5-yard catch and run can be enough to get a touchdown. So right here you see the level of physicality. Just look at how many guys it takes to bring him down. We've seen that on the first clip as well, but he does a good job at just being able to lower his pass, man, and take what should have been pretty much a 3rd and maybe 2 if they would have been able to stop him before he got the first down. But he's able to break through some tackles, put his shoulder down and run through them, and he's able to get a first down and put his team in an even better position to be able to score. All right, so right here we got a red area. Got to have a situation of 3rd and 7. And you see you got Tee Higgins. So he's lined up in the slot in the middle between the tight end and between Jamar Chase. So they kind of got a pretty funky looking formation right there in terms of where they have guys at. You got the tight end lined up out wide. Tee Higgins is in the middle, and then you got Jamar Chase, and then you come to the other side, you got your receiver matched up on the boundary side, who you probably don't even really throw the ball to that much. So that was just interesting to me. But when you look at Tee Higgins right there, he just runs pretty much a simple little slant route. You can tell that it was a man-to-man or some type of I think it was a man-to-man. I think that with the linebacker right there we're looking at, he drops back. He showed as if he was going to rush, and he dropped back to kind of act as that rope, that type of, robber type role, to where he tried to take away anything that's kind of quick and across the middle. But Joe Burrow kind of did a good job at beating him to the point in terms of the ball placement. And then if you look at Tee Higgins, he just does a good job once again at being able to just attack the outside shoulder of Marlon Humphreys. So when you're, as a receiver, when you're running a route right, obviously, and I know I'm trying to kind of turn this into a teaching moment, I can't help it sometimes, but when you're a receiver and you're trying to, say for instance, in like this route right here, if I'm trying to get inside, in order for me to get inside, I need to move vertically, and I need to try to attack the outside shoulder to make him think that that's where I'm going and kind of slide over to give me a release to the inside, just like how he did right here. And he just did a good job at selling that route. And like I said, Joe Burrow did a good job at threading the needle, putting that pass right there on the money for a walk-in touchdown. So right here, we got another gotta have a situation. So looking at this, I was saying to myself originally, I was saying, hold up. It seemed like in those gotta have it situations, more times than not, they were going to Tee Higgins over Jamar Chase. But here's the thing, too. You have to understand that when you're gonna gotta have a situation right down in distance, when you know the situation, most teams, most defensive coordinators at least, they're gonna say, okay, who is the most effective within this offense? And obviously that's Jamar Chase, but that Tee Higgins isn't a slouch. So I say that to say that a lot of times defenses can say, you know what, in a gotta have a situation, we're gonna prioritize Jamar Chase, and you're just gonna show us that consistently you can beat us with Tee Higgins. So it gives you that option. Like, kind of when I was breaking down film on CDC, didn't have that option. It's like no matter what, we had to figure out ways to get him involved. So, I know that that's kind of, getting off topic a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to kind of elaborate and put a little context to that in terms of, like kind of where I was getting at. But once again, in another guy to have a situation, you go to Tee Higgins, you look at the corner. The corner really was never really in position. You look at right there, it's like they were kind of trying to communicate about something, and he kind of got caught with his head, kind of looking off, and Tee Higgins just did a good job at just being able to close the distance. And once again, by being an inside route, what does he do? He attacks the outside shoulder. So when he attacks the outside shoulder, just notice that with the corner, he shifts over left, right? Just a tad bit, not a lot, but that's all you need to be able to create that separation and give that throwing lane to the quarterback. And he does a good job at just being able to create that little bit of separation. Like I said, you have to be able to do that in the red area. So right here, you got Tee Higgins lined up in the slot. And once again, you got a one-on-one matchup. And he just does a good job at just really just slinging the cornerback. Like the cornerback never stood a chance. And then just being able to power through tackles. Let's take another look at that release, man. He just does it. Look at just how he's able to get physical with his hands. But that goes back to what I was saying once again. I'm always try to make sure I capitalize on a teaching opportunity for my young receivers. If you're watching, utilize your hands for much more than just catching. You look at how he was able to create that opening with just being physical at the point of attack and kind of just not necessarily pushing off, but really just kind of manhandling and just sending him flying. Obviously his direction, his momentum was already going that way, and he just kind of assisted it with just being more physical. And this is another reason why a lot of corners don't play active press in the NFL because of things like that. But obviously we know Tee Higgins is just a big physical receiver, and not every receiver can do this. And so right here, he just does a good job securing the catch and just being able to make up yards after the catch. He's a very big dude. He has a nice size. He's pretty physical. And if you notice from the clips that we've broke down so far, that it's very rare that we've seen just one guy be able to take him down, man. More times than not, he's usually able to run through the first tackle. And even if the first guy initially is able to keep a hold to him, it normally takes two to three other guys to be able to come down just to be able to get him on the ground. All right, so, man, once again, we got Tee Higgins lined up in the slot. You got another guy to have a situation. And what did I say? What can you do on your own? So right here, he just runs a simple slant. Man, it's so crazy because it seems like majority of the routes that we've seen him run has really been in breaking routes, whether it be a slant or whether it just be an in route. We haven't really seen anything vertically for the most part yet, nor have we seen any kind of jump balls, which you would assume with him being with the stature that he has. But mostly everything has kind of been in breaking in between the numbers. And like I said, once again, he just runs a slant. Corner drives on it. Corner's playing very, 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 very soft coverage. He drives on it. If he comes downhill and secure that tackle, it's a first down, but you live to fight another day. You drive downhill, you miss the tackle. Now Tee Higgins is able to walk into the end zone for an easy catch and run. But once again, it goes back to what I said. We see that he's a very physical receiver that more times than not. Now, I did see a clip here previously where you did have a guy who was able to bring him down in one-on-one situation, but more times than not, the first man to him does not bring him down. And as a defense, if you're not rallying to the ball, these type of plays like this can happen on any given play dealing with Tee Higgins. So right here, we got another guy to have a situation. Once again, you end up getting Tee Higgins matched up on the outside one-on-one with a corner. And once again, what do I always talk about when I talk to my young receivers? What's two of the things I always talk about? I always talk about when you're moving, when you're doing your moves off the line of scrimmage, get vertical, don't stay stationary, right? That's one. Two, my new thing that I've been preaching has been active hands. Use your hands for much more than just catching the ball. So right here, Tee Higgins also does a good job at that. Once the corner gets a hand or is trying to get a hand on him, notice how he uses his hands to fight off the corner's hand. So that's not pass interference at all because the corner was going to touch him. My job as a receiver is to prevent you from putting your hands on me, to prevent you from being able to slow down my route or slow down the timing of my route to where you make my quarterback look elsewhere. Once again, and now we found the first time we actually see a vertical pass down the field opposed to everything kind of being underneath. Right here, you have a back shoulder fade. He just does a good job, like I said, at fighting the corner's hands, knocking his hands down, and just being able to track the ball. Makes a pretty good catch, falling backwards, going towards the out of bounds line to secure the catch on top of a PI. So this play right here actually was a 4th down play. And on this play showed to me exactly what I was saying when I was saying that how we kept seeing a lot of Tee Higgins in those gotta have it situations where they on those 3rd downs. And I was saying that either Tee Higgins is the it guy in that situation, or teams are basically saying in a gotta have a situation, we're doubling Chase, and Tee Higgins or somebody else is going to have to beat us. But not only are they going to have to beat us, they're going to have to be able to do that consistently over the course of 4 quarters. So if you look at it, they kind of have Tee Higgins double bracketed as well as Jamar Chase. They kept a guy over the top and they kind of kept a guy underneath in a sense. But though on both of those guys, based off of how they were aligned, kind of was over the top of them, it would have only been once Tee Higgins was able to get vertically that the corner probably would have been underneath. But you would have thought that the safety would have tried his best to stay over the top of it to prevent it from happening. But I think that when Tee Higgins did the in and out or the in and up, he kind of threatened obviously the safety whole objective is to stay over the top. So when Tee Higgins was stemming as if he was finna go inside, similar to probably like a post pattern, more of a skinnier post pattern, his whole objective was to stay over the top of it and not get beat. And like I said, all it takes is just for a split second to hop out of position or to slide over to try to prevent something, and then you're already out of position, especially in the NFL, and especially when you're dealing with receivers who are crafty enough and who knows how to be able to stack and use their bodies to prevent you from ever being able to affect the pass. But he just does a phenomenal job at selling a route, really catching both of them off guard and being able to secure a touchdown on this 4th and 2. So right here, you got another red area possession, man. Like I say, man, you know I love my red area possession. I always emphasize the red area. When you get in the red area, you want to come up with points, whether it be a touchdown or a field goal. But obviously, who wants to settle for a field goal? You want to try to put up points right here. And then what I always talk about when it comes to receivers is just being able to maneuver in that tight space and being able to make tight window catches. So right here, Tee Higgins does a good job at that. So he kind of just runs it looks like he kind of ran somewhat of a slight out and up. It almost really looks similar to the previous clip, the play that he ran right there. He just tried to utilize his head movement in terms of being able to try to see the discipline within the corner. So what I mean by head movement is obviously, when you're a corner, you're not supposed to watch the shoulder or the head or the shoulders for the most part because you can get faked out with those. You always want to try to stay locked in on your hips. But obviously, in critical situations, sometimes things can be happening so fast that you kind of lose discipline. So right there, I feel like he was kind of just trying to see where he was at in terms of being what he was watching. And he did a good job of just really sticking with it. But Joe Burrow did a good job of just putting that throw in the money. And Tee Higgins did a good job of just utilizing his body to block off the DB to secure the catch. So it's almost similar to what I talk about whenever I talk about big receivers or physical receivers. And I wouldn't even necessarily say big. When I talk about physical receivers in the red area, a lot of times they act as power forwards or centers would in basketball. What they call the term box out in basketball, when a power forward or whoever boxes out and get a rebound. When you have bigger physical guys down in the red area, you could do the same thing with them, kind of use their body to shield off the defender to be able to make those tough catches in those tight windows. So right here, we got another guy to have a situation. We got a 3rd and 9. And it really looked like Cincinnati just ran some type of levels concept with just trying to flood one side of the field. And that's how they was able to kind of get Tee Higgins open. But if you look, Tee Higgins really won this route from the beginning. And man, it was just honestly just a vertical release. He just was able to get over the top of him and stack him, obviously. And he never really stood a chance at being able to break up the pass or being able to influence the pass, especially with this throw that Joe Burrow did. Now, keep in mind, Joe Burrow was nailed just as well on this play throwing this ball. As you can see right there, you see the guy coming in right there on the blitzer. So he got hit just as well, but Tee Higgins got leveled. Boom, man, that was a clean hit too. Beautiful, clean hit. He led with the shoulder. He didn't lead with the crown of his head. And he honestly gave him an opportunity to catch the ball, boom, and still was able to, gave him opportunity to catch the ball before he actually hit him. And, like I said, once again, man, it just showcases the physicality of Tee Higgins, man, just being able to hold on to that ball. And it's kind of just the moral of the story just from watching film from him. Like I said, you see that a lot of his damage that he do is in between the numbers. And that's like the dirty area where a lot of guys don't want to go just because of things like this happening. Now, we have seen that with this play just as well as another one that he can attack vertically too. So he's not a one-dimensional player, meaning that he can only do one thing. He can attack you vertically too, but he just doesn't necessarily have the speed that's going to blow the top off of a defense. And then we also seen that he's versatile in terms of being able to line up in multiple positions, being able to line up on a boundary, being able to line up on the field side, being able to line up on the outside, being able to line up on the inside, and we've seen that the effectiveness that he has too whenever you get into the red area as well due to his physicality. All right, so we got another red area possession. Once again, they got Tee Higgins matched up on the outside one-on-one. And we've seen his most famous route that we've seen him run majority of these clips, and that's the slant route. And I guess at this point, he's perfected it, so why not stick with it? If it ain't broke, why fix it type deal? So you see, once again, what did I always talk about when I talk about to my younger receivers? Two things. Moving up the field vertically when you're attacking the defender, right? That's one. Two, utilizing the hands. So you see that once again, the corner tries to get his hands on him at the point of attack, and Tee Higgins does a good job of utilizing his hands to just be able to knock away the corner's hand. Now, what that does a lot of times too is it slows down the momentum of the defensive player, right? Obviously, the defensive player wants to slow down your momentum by getting his hands on you. But if you're able to prevent him from getting his hands on you, it slows down his momentum just like how he did here. Also, once again, notice that when he's trying to go inside, right? When you're trying to go inside, you're going to always, wherever you're trying to go, if you're trying to go outside, you're going to attack the defensive player inside shoulder. And if you're trying to go inside, you're going to attack his outside shoulder. So Tee Higgins does a good job at being able to attack his outside shoulder. The cornerback try to get his hands on him. He's able to knock the cornerback's hands down over. And he was open right here, but obviously the pressure led to Joe Burrow kind of having to roll out and temporarily extend the play. And he just did a phenomenal job at being able to get rid of this ball before he fell down to Tee Higgins for a touchdown. So right here, you got Tee Higgins matched up on the outside with this corner one-on-one. The corner's playing off. I'm talking about very, very off. So obviously he was trying to prevent the possibility of him being beat deep. Tee Higgins kind of just runs a stop and go. And like I say, the corner really just doesn't fall forward. He just kind of stays in position. And honestly, he stuck to this as best as he could. You see that there really was no separation on this play right here. It just was a phenomenal ball placement from Joe Burrow, and then just phenomenal ball skills for Tee Higgins to be able to track this ball while being smothered by the defender. And here's the thing, just look at the amount of space that he has to be able to secure this catch, right? When you're in the NFL, you got to be able to catch it, get possession, and get 2 feet in bounds before you go out of bounds for it to be an actual catch. It's not like college to where you can just get 1 foot in, right? And he does a phenomenal job. And like I said, once again, too, when you're in the red area, you have to be able to maneuver in those tight confines because that's just what it is. So he does a good job at just being able to track the ball and being able to secure the catch while being draped by a defender and get 2 feet in. This right here was just another beautiful play. So this play right here is just the embodiment of showing that sometimes I don't give a darn how good the defense is or what or how good it is, the defensive formation you is to stop what the offense is doing. When you got a quarterback and a receiver that's just so in sync and that's on the same page, man, it's very hard to stop them. So right here, you got a 2nd and 10 play, and Joe Burrow just does a phenomenal job. Obviously, you see number 22 is the safety. He's trying to get over the top to be able to contest this pass. Joe Burrow just does a good job at being able to lay the ball out to protect Tee Higgins, for one, from being able to be hit by the safety who's coming over to give help over the top, but then also allowing for Tee Higgins to just be able to, in a sense, essentially the ball really just dropped into his hands. If you really want to be honest, it's not really necessarily like he had to adjust his body or contort his body or anything like that, because the ball was perfectly placed. All he had to do was just do a phenomenal ball of being able to track the ball from the air to his hands, which he did. But then also it goes back into the previous clip, like I said, being able to maneuver in those tight spaces, to be aware that you're against the sideline and to know that, okay, I need to make sure that I get both feet in to be able to secure this catch, right? So he does a good job at that, being able to track the ball from over his shoulder, from the air to his hands, and being able to get both feet in to secure the catch. Like I said, man, that's very hard to stop. It's almost impossible to stop. All right, man. So right here we got the drop the mic moment We're going to end the video off right here with this touchdown. So in this game right here, Tee Higgins was cooking. Like, they had no answer for him on the other side of the field. Obviously, you know, you had Surtain matched up over there on Jamar Chase. You see number 2 versus number 1, but they had no answer for him over on the opposite side of the field with number 21. So right here, man, he just runs a simple out route. He actually ran this route pretty fast. Like, the distance that he covered from the line of scrimmage getting to the cornerback and was able to open him up, he covered that distance very, very well. And the thing about this route right here, too, is that typically whenever we see a receiver lines up to run an out-breaking route, a lot of times they kind of line up with a much tighter split. But if you look at them, they were on the field side, well, the boundary side, my bad. Boundary side meaning the short side, short side of the field. And Tee Higgins just did a good job at kind of understanding that. And based off of his release, it looks like at his release point, when he came off the line, once again, what did I say? It's all about attacking the shoulder. If you're trying to go outside, you're going to attack the inside shoulder. So he did a good job at kind of stemming his route as if he was going to go inside and attack the inside shoulder and just rounding it off, going back towards the out of bounds line. Once again, Joe Burrow just does a good job at threading the needle on this pass, and Tee Higgins just does a good job at being aware of where he was at and being able to get both feet in and secure a touchdown. Like I said, man, in plays like this, it's just very hard to stop when you got a quarterback and a receiver who has that understanding, that chemistry, and they on the same page and they know exactly what each other is expected to do. And then when you're dealing with a quarterback like Joe Burrow who can put the ball in positions to where only the receiver can get to it as a corner, man, that becomes very, very difficult to be able to defend. But, man, like I say, man, with Tee Higgins, I mean, he's a physical, big body receiver, not necessarily the guy that's going to, you know, blow the top off the defense. Like I said, majority of his work he did was in between the numbers, in the middle. Obviously, having a bigger frame, it allows for you to be able to take those hits, especially over the course of a full season. And that's just most of where his damage was done at. I mean, you've seen that he ran a lot of in routes, slant routes, and a lot of in breaking routes. You know, we seen plays where he was able to stretch the field, stretch the defense vertically down the field. We seen a few plays where he was able to, you know, get matched up on a one-on-one outside, and you were just able to throw a jump ball or a back shoulder fade. So he's a pretty versatile receiver. Like I said, he's a good number 2 other than Jamar Chase. I know Jamar Chase says that they're both number 1 receivers, but he's a good Robin to Jamar Chase's Batman. Like I said, because most teams that play them are gonna focal point on Jamar Chase, and having a guy like Tee Higgins who can win those matchups that he's getting because of the way teams are playing them, it makes it so much easier, and nobody ever really has to feel overwhelmed or like they just are the only ones that can make something happen, kind of similar to CD over there in Dallas. But, man, if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. When you subscribe, make sure that you click that notification bell where you be notified every time I upload, and I'll see y'all in the next video.